Hello and welcome. Today we are going to be talking about the purpose of leadership. And my name is Dr. Rabina Malik. First of all, before we get started, I want to thank the Telecommunications and Digital Government Regulatory Authority, TDRA, for giving us this opportunity to give this workshop to you. Before we get started, let me tell you a little bit about myself so you know who's speaking to you. Again, my name is Dr. Rabina Malik. I am a professor of business as well as a global learning and development expert. My research and expertise focuses on human capital development, coaching, mentoring, and career sponsorship. And today we're going to talk about leadership. So, leadership is a topic that it's talked about so much. You probably hear about it, leadership, and it actually has been talked about for a long, long time. The subject has been around since the Greek days. Socrates and Plato were talking about it. They were like the gurus of leadership and management, as well as one of my favorite topics, mentoring is also a topic that's been talked about and goes back to the days of the Greek philosophers. And when we talk about leadership, this isn't just an individual thing or a solution to one's company. Leadership is something that can create solutions for nations, for sectors and regions. So, we have to think broader than just our organization. And actually, if you really think about it, leadership even affects our families. We could take it personal, and it affects, so many sectors of our life. So my intention today is that you're going to walk away with being able to define leadership and looking at what's the purpose. And you might find what I'm going to speak about today a little different than what you might think, what you might have heard, etc. And I do hope so. So let's start out with doing a quick exercise. I want to hear from you. So in the chat, how do you define leadership? And what do you think is the purpose of leadership? So I'm going to give you a few minutes to type that up. How do you define leadership? And or what do you think is the purpose of leadership? Okay. Anybody? Make sure to get engaged. We learn through engagement. Okay. All right. Well, just kind of ponder on that for yourself. Like, how do you define it? And what do you think the purpose is as we go through this, just to doing some of that reflective work? So let's talk. If we look at what does the books say? What do the theories say? What is out there on what is leadership? And so if we were to define leadership, it is the ability to communicate with others in a way that they're influenced and motivated to actually take action. And so, and also those actions are towards common goals that lead towards desired outcomes. So I like to say leadership is the ability to motivate and influence individuals to take action. That's the short version. Motivate individuals to take action. And so we did have someone say leadership is how to guide. Yeah, very good. So as I said here is to motivate and influence, which leads to guide as well, right? And leadership also is distribute the work among a group of members to achieve the goal. All right, very good. I love that. And I'm going to push against your definition and you'll understand why. So I'm not going to talk about it right now. I'm going to come back to that And thank you for posting it, but I'm going to come back to it because we're going to talk about the difference between being a manager and being a leader. And you have very succinctly defined both. So that's really great. So, really leadership is about being able to motivate and influence someone to take action. Um, and then what leadership is about, it's about leading people, it's about influencing people, it's about commanding people. As you can say, commanding, I like to say motivate people, as well as it is about guiding people as well. Making that influence, being able to make decisions and actually guiding people. So very good. So let me ask you another question. Put this in the chat. Are all managers leaders? And are all leaders managers? Okay. And I love how someone else posted about leadership. It's setting an example, which is so, so true. Thank you. Yeah. But answer this question. Are all managers leaders? Or are all managers and are all leaders managers? Take a minute to think about that. Very good. So someone says no. Yeah, very good. Very, very good. All right. Anybody else before we move on? Okay. So, no. Yeah, very good. Thank you for participating. All right. So, not all our leaders are managers, nor are all managers leaders. So, when we look at leadership, and when we look at someone that's a manager, or when we talk about management, they're two different things. I mean, I can actually do a whole section on what management is, right? Just like we can talk about a whole section on what leadership is. So when we're talking about managers, we're actually looking at someone that's in a position of authority, and they have subordinates that they manage, that they, for lack of a better word, I'm going to dictate, okay, well, let's do this, let's do this. Versus a leader is someone that actually influences and then motivates. And, leaders actually have followers, and they influence others to influence and motivate others to take action on a goal, to take action on something, whether it's a goal, whether it's a task, but they're motivated to do that, not solely because they're their manager, but because those individuals are motivated by how that manager treats them, how that leader treats them, and how that leader displays empowers them. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But so not everybody is a leader, not every manager is a leader, and not every leader is a manager. There's some really bad managers out there, but really great leaders. And there's really great leaders, but are not really great managers. And just to tell a little bit about myself, I actually don't consider myself to be a great manager, but I do consider myself to be a good leader. And yeah, so I really have to work on being a manager, right? Like, so, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what are the differences. And so when we look at the differences between being the leader and being the boss, is that management activities where you're really putting together these activities to produce a result, right? So it's really, produces order and consistency, whereas a leader produces change and movement. So, we're getting people aligned with the vision, motivating them, inspiring them, establishing direction, and where the management activities, they're very controlling and problem solving and organizing and staffing. So they're more task oriented, versus leadership activities are more transformational oriented. So the major activities of management and leadership They're actually, played out differently. So both are essential for an organization, but do know that there is a distinction, between them. So let's look at some of these differences. So this is from some research. And so a manager focuses on the present, and a leader actually looks at the future. So a leader is a conceptual thinker. And as you move up in the organization and you have more accountability, you are a conceptual thinker. You're thinking about the future of where you're going. As well as a manager prefers stability. A leader might even cause change as well as appreciate change. The manager focuses on the how and the when and the processes and the procedures. And the leader may trust their intuition and tries to simplify things and asks why and what and engages in a vision, not just a procedure or a process. And a manager works within the context of the organization and the business. And the leader might take social and environmental top context into consideration, where they are. One of the things that I've talked about, if you've ever been in some of my other workshops, is about going into the 21st century, being a conceptual leader, and no longer, as we go into the 21st century, are we looking at management and managers? We're really we need those leadership skills. So that's another reason why today's session is really important. So again, leadership versus management. A leader is visionary. Management is more, productive expert. So these are just some more ways to look at the difference. So whether their role, their focus, how they approach things, their methodology, their style and tone, and the outcome. The outcome of leadership and management is different as well. So the outcome for leadership is to reach long-range goals and objectives, whereas a manager is to manage projects efficiently and effectively, right? So if you look at the end goal, you'll see that there's different ways to get to those end goals. So the comment about, just to go back to, distribute the work among a group of members to achieve the goal for that individual. Would you now define leadership different after now hearing this around the difference between leadership and management? Would you define leadership different? Because if we think about it, it is about distributing work and to achieve those goals, but it's not through, it's not through being project oriented, but it really is through motivating and looking at the long range. Would love to hear, what you were saying about that. Would love to say about that. But let's also look at, managing. When you're talking about managers, you're looking at authority as well, because when you're a manager, you are also in that role, in that role as a authority, right? So you have a position and a position of authority. So when we're talking about authority, we're talking about, this is your legitimate power, right? So you have a position and you have a power in that position, and then you're dictating what needs to be done. You're guiding people to tell them what needs to be done. Whereas a leader may be a formal authority, but they have that informal authority as well, where they may exercise and motivate and influence individuals by their personality, not necessarily their position, but also from their influence as well. So leadership is independent of authority and position. It's about an individual and how they motivate and influence individuals. So leaders a lot of time really trust their judgment, and they may not hold a position of authority, but it's how they present themselves, how they influence and motivate others. So, like, for instance, let's look at Gandhi. So Gandhi really didn't hold an official. If we look at, matter of fact, talking about Gandhi, I think today or yesterday was India's Independence Day. But Gandhi, if we look at it, most part, he didn't really have an official position, but he led India to freedom, right? So you don't have to necessarily have a position per se to lead, to be a leader. So let me just read what something in the chat. So it's like we get influenced by a leader and follow them while we work for the managers because of their positions. So yes and no. All right. So great question, by the way. So yes and no. So managers motivated. So a manager can also be a leader. Okay. So we don't want to mix that. I don't want you to think that they can't. Okay. So they can. So somebody in management can also be a leader. So because they're going to influence someone to be able to take on something. So, but not every manager is a motivator and an influencer. There's a lot of managers that are very task oriented. So basically, all they tell you is, hey, go do this. Can you do this? And they do that because they need to produce order. They need to organize and control and solve problems, right? So if we look at this chart as well, right? So they focus on the procedures and the how, and, like, hey, let's get this done, versus a leader may motivate and influence you. But let's say a manager that's a leader might motivate and influence you by sharing with you the bigger vision. Like, hey, I really need you to do this because we are looking at, growing the business to, about 50 million. And what this work will entail would support that. Versus a manager might just say, I just need you to do this. So it's not that it's one or the other. So we get influenced by a leader and follow them while we work for the manager because of their position. You really would love to be a manager that's also an influencer as a leader. So I hope your goal is to be a manager that is a leader, that motivates and influence individuals to take on a task, and not just because they are given a task. Does that make sense? Did that answer your question? Please feel free to put that in the chat. So, but great question. Great question. So let's do another quick exercise, and I just want you to. Oops. I just did that. Sorry about that. I just lost my PowerPoint there. So what I want to let's talk about what does a good leader look like? So think about a leader, someone that what are they doing right? What makes that person a good leader? Put some things in the chat around that. What does a good leader look like? What are they doing right? Okay, so thank you. So that did make sense. Thank you. All right. So anybody in the chat? So they're an example. They have confidence. Very good. And I really love that, like I've seen being an example a couple of times. And I really, really like that because it really does, that is a part of being a leader, is that you're displaying that which you're asking others to do as well. So they're hard workers. They trust and empower the team. Yes, very good. I think you've read my slides. I hope you haven't been seeing my slides there, but you're very, very true. We're going to talk a little bit more about that later, about trust and empower. All right, great traits. Yeah. So let's talk about what does it take to be a good leader. So again, who's the leader? So a leader who influences a group of people towards the achievement of a goal, right? So we inspire others to dream. I love this. We if your actions inspire others to dream more, learn more, do more, and become more, you are a leader. Uh, um, and by the way, uh, each one of us really do inspire and really make an impact on others. Somebody may not say it to you, but it's just the small things. Okay. But let's look at these leadership skills, because if you're displaying some of these skills and you're being this way with people, you're going to make that impact as a leader, and you're going to be looked at as a leader as well. So when we're looking at leadership skills, we're looking at someone that does communication very well. We're looking at someone that is motivating, that has positivity, that has creativity. And what I mean, let me go back to positivity. So this isn't somebody that runs around like rah, rah, rah. Yes, they do. But they also are that someone that has a growth mindset, right? So although they may have a negative, they may, oh my God, I'm so upset, but they also come around faster and they have a growth mindset. They see the bigger picture. Okay. They're also they think outside of the box, they think creatively. They're also really good about one of the skills is providing feedback and also receiving feedback, giving and receiving feedback, you know, as well as problem solving and decision making skills. And again, we talk about influence. They're an influencer, and they do delegation very effectively. So a true leader does not necessarily have to do every single thing. They're able to delegate. Okay. And so when you're talking about and we're going to talk about some other attributes as well. So some of you said, have confidence, work hard, trust, and empower the team. In order to do this, yes, you do have to have confidence. Leaders do work hard. Let me also say they work hard, but they also work smart. Okay. Because if they're able to motivate and influence others, they're not just doing everything by themselves, they're doing everything with a team, right? So they're working with the team. And that's where I love the other comment, which is trust and empower the team. So as they're trusting and empowering their team, they're working smarter and not necessarily harder, but they might be working harder, but they're working smarter. Just throw in the chat if you agree with that as well. And by the way, I love it. It really makes me happy when you engage. I don't get to see you, so just getting the chat really, it makes me happy. Okay, just so you know, and also just being engaged also helps you to learn stuff better too. Just so you know. All right, so let's talk about leadership and what are the different ways that leaders have power. Okay, so leaders might have power through their position. So this is their formal authority. So you're the president of the organization, or you're the manager of the department, or you're the vice president. Well, you have formal authority. You have power by position. Then there's leaders who get power by reward. So let me ask you, as a professor, do I have power by reward? I do, don't I? Right? Because if you do X, what are you going to get? You're going to get Y. If you do the homework, you're going to get the grade. You're going to get the A, you're going to get the B, or the F, whatever you decide that you want to work hard towards, right? And then we know some of this as well as that coercion or punishment. So there's leaders who take advantage of their positions, and who use coercion and punishment as a form of power. And they're not necessarily effective leaders. They might get stuff done, but the people aren't necessarily motivated, but they do it because if you don't do it, you're going to get punished. Now, as a professor, I could use that too, right? I could use coercion or punishment. If you don't do this, you're going to get an F, right? So, but that's another source of power as a leader. And then there's the power that you get from expertise, right? So as a professor, I'm going to go back to myself as a professor. I also have source of power through my expertise, right? So I think I told you in my introduction, I talk about mentoring, coaching, and I'm a global leader when it comes to training, as well as career sponsorship. Well, I'm an expert, right? Like, so I'm published in the Harvard Business Review. I just actually, congratulations to me, have a publication coming out next month around career sponsorship. So that makes me an expert. So there's people that you have a source of power through expertise. Then there's reverent power. That power is given to you, but that power could be given to you because of your position, also your charisma, or you might, like because of your charisma, you might actually have own that power as a leader. So you have that reverence power. And then there's also control over information or access to resources. Like you're the gatekeeper. Sometimes I think that goes under coercion, coercion, right? But there is that power as well. So as a leader, we want to be really considerate of what kind of sources of power am I using? Am I being an expert? Am I using reverent power? And by the way, reverent power, charisma, and transformational, that's what we want to do. And just really kind of consider what are the different ways that we have power. Okay. Or we have as a leader, and then we bring that power in. So I hope that was a little helpful in regards to that was a little theoretical, but it was hopefully helpful for you to see where the different people, how different leaders that you might know get their power. Okay. So just give me a thumbs up if you thought that was great, or put something in the chat. Great. All right. So let's talk about, since we've been talking about coercion, power, and sometimes leaders do take their power and they're bad managers. They're a bad leader. They're a bad manager. So let's talk about examples of a bad leader and a bad manager. Okay, so put it in the chat. I'm going to give you a few seconds to do that. Okay, let's see if anybody put anything in the chat. Okay. So when we're talking about, leadership gone wrong, let's talk about what are some of those pitfalls. Unreachable. Yeah, it's very good. And is that unreachable emotionally, or like you can't get to them, you can't have access to them? Okay. Well, let's talk about some of those leadership pitfalls, right? Um, and how do you avoid some of them? So these are some of the deadliest sins that leaders and managers can do, right? To be that manager that that could be unreachable, both emotionally and like I'm so busy that their door is always closed, that you can't have FaceTime with them. The best managers, just so like having an open door policy. And you can have an open door policy doesn't necessarily mean your door always stays open, but just letting your people know, like, if you need me, I'm here. One of my favorite things is we had a president one year at the university where I just met him like once or twice, and then one day we were at an event, and he was like a row in front of me, and he turned around, looked at me, and I looked. Our eyes met, and he turned around and said, "Hello, Rabina, how are you?" And that was so wow. Like I was so impressed by that. So here's a leader who remembered my name. So and that to make me feel like he was reachable. Um, and so it's really important that when you go into that position that you have that open door policy, and you let your subordinates know, your people around you know, that you are available, not right then and there. I mean, but you might have to make an appointment, but you know what, you can make an appointment with me. And so let's see. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so unreachable both emotionally and physically. Ignore the team, unsupportive to the team. Yes. Ignore any conflict in the process. Yes, yes, yes. Right. Very good. Bad leaders, bad managers. Very good. All right. So, when we're talking about those daily sins, we're talking about these are managers that might use their authority and their power of their followers not in a good way, right? So these are some of the things to avoid. So publicly rebunk and embrace a follower in front of the whole, embarrass in front of the whole team, right? Like that's a no. We don't do that. Like you can say, hey, Rabina, when you get a chance, let's talk, in my office. And it goes both ways too, right? Like you might not want to embarrass them in front of in public as well. So I know that like there's that authority, the level of respect as well. So that respect should be given to both to mutual. There should be mutual respect. Another pitfall is being suspicious of your followers, right? Like, ooh, do I trust them? So, like a lack of trust. Criticizing all the time. Say one thing and mean something else. Believe you know it all. Yes. Be secretive about your dealings and conduct as a leader. I really believe in being a transparent leader, authentic leader. If I don't know something, I'm going to tell you I don't know it. And I don't have to, if I'm being that way, I don't have to demand respect. You are going to respect because I'm showing you respect, but also I'm also showing you that I'm a human being as well. And some other traits that we want to avoid is blaming, defensive, content and stonewalling, stopping things from happening. We've all known those kind of leaders. We see those. So we don't want to be that. Okay. So leaders become great not because of their power, but because of their ability to empower others. Yes, because a true leader, has attributes, and these attributes are like the master of the self, effective manager of people, as well as being an active visionary, right? So you're able to work with your people, you're able to master yourself, but also being a visionary, and we talked about that earlier. And let's talk about a true leader. Self leadership is really important. The first victory, Pluto said, the first victory and the best victory is to conquer yourself. So we have to know ourselves as a leader. We have to understand, who are we and what triggers us, and how do we master ourselves. So being able to self-manage, right? So if we're talking about emotional intelligence, and emotional intelligence is another one of my favorite topics. If you haven't studied up on that, I really invite you to do that. And part of that is self-management. And so that's enabling, being able to master ourselves to fulfill not only our potential and supporting our team to fulfill our potential. And by the way, self-mastery isn't just being a leader at work. All of this also goes to being a leader professionally and personally. So I can watch someone and I'm like, okay, if they're this way at work, I wonder how they are at home. And most of the time, they're probably about the same, right? So I want to run through some principles of leadership. So One principle is that, you have to have the ability to change, to influence and motivate individuals, right? So this is it could be something that's natural, but being able to, and you can also train yourself on having the ability to influence and have those traits and have those skills. And by the way, any of these skills here, see, I don't believe, I believe that leaders can be cultivated. All right. There's some people are born true leaders, but I think leadership can be cultivated. So you can cultivate any of these skills. So I do believe that that you can upskill, reskill, and skill yourself and build competencies and and competencies and skills to be a true leader. And one of the things is, as we go through this, and we're going to talk about empowering our people, is to really being empathetic, and being empowering. And that doesn't mean, we think leaders have to be, extroverts, and not introverts. But I think some of the best leaders that I know are probably introverts. Yeah. So, all right. So having a leadership is an ability to change people, to motivate people, and influence them. It's also being adaptive, right? So you can look, if leaders who were adaptive during the last year and a half, especially during COVID, their companies are the ones that are successful right now. If you look at it, right, like shifting. And one of the things that I love about Dubai is the leadership, right? Is the sheikh and his leadership, and how, like, he sees something and he right away adapts to it. And not only does he adapt to it, is that he influences and motivates others to also be adaptive towards that. But it's just even in the culture, right? So it's even in the culture of being adaptive. So you have to be able to adjust. There's so many stories, like case studies of leaders who don't, and where their companies are right now today. They are nowhere because they're no longer in existence. And if you want one of those companies and you want to research it, look up um, Blockbuster. Okay, I was about to say Netflix, but no, Blockbuster, because Netflix actually went to them. But Blockbuster, check them out under that. Leadership also acts on setting setting actions. Okay, so they take action. They look at how not only can they adapt, but how can they take action around that. Leaders and leadership is an empowering, where you're able to empower others, inspire others, and motivate them to take action. You also foster creativity through innovation, right? So even though there's limited resources, you can also enable people to use their creativity. You can motivate people. And this, again, if we look at the culture in Dubai, like what's impossible is the possible. We're actually talking about, like that's fostering creativity, right? So it's the mindset. It's also, I think, the leader giving you an opening to actually be a leader that is creative. And problem solving is the next. So closing the gap between things that they want to do, but actually and have to do, and making sure that we're coming up with a solution. And also leadership is shared. So it's shared by everyone in the organization. So a true leader doesn't just say it's all about me. It's actually about the team, as we've talked about earlier. Some of the attributes is about the team. And so a successful leader doesn't do everything by themselves. They actually have I think I just messed up my lighting there. So hopefully, let me just turn some more lighting on. So hopefully that helps. All right. So yeah. So leadership is shared. Okay. So characteristics of an effective leader. So we talked about skills earlier. The characteristics are, you have leadership abilities. That you're an envisioner. You can envision things, your team building, your commitment to employee involvement, engagement, right? Like your win-win conflict resolution, as well as that you actually accurately do quick assessments of the situation before making any decisions. And also you're open to training and matter of fact, you're coaching, training that not only for yourself, but also offering that to others. But as a leader, you want to be a lifelong learner. You're never done learning. That's one thing I can say. If I looked at all the leaders that I've talked to, all the leaders that I have followed, they all will tell you this the same thing. Like it's making sure you're always learning and growing. But I want to talk about in particular the team building. And if we go back to, here, the empowering, I want to wrap up everything with empowering. So when we're talking, so I'm actually looking at this from the book, Empowering Leadership, How to Develop Empowered Employees or Followers, sorry. And with this refers to allowing followers the freedom to be independent, make decisions on their own, and be self-sufficient. So it is a way for leaders to share power, right? I mean, obviously you have a team, you want to build that team, but you also want to make sure that you're empowering those individuals in making those decisions. So why is that important? Well, one of the reasons that's important because empowered employees, all right? So empowerment motivates employees. You build trust in leadership. You improve the confidence and the creativity of those around you. And then you have a strong bottom line. So you see the result here, like as I'm motivating and influencing, as I'm empowering those around me, giving them freedom to think, giving them creative opportunity to be confident and creative, I'm also creating a strong bottom line. I have better communications, not just on an individual level, but also on a team level, and allowing everyone to contribute. And when we're talking about everyone to contribute, we're talking about diversity of thought. Listen, everybody has a thought, and sometimes those thoughts are better than your thoughts may be better than my thoughts. And then there's also the purpose and the potential, right? So the potential of individuals, they're following the purpose. So these are the attributes or the importance of empowering your employees. So how do you empower your employees as a leader? You want to be able to delegate to develop your individuals, right? Set clear expectations, give employees autonomy over assignments, provide the necessary resources. I can't tell you how many times I hear people complain, but I don't have the resources or I wasn't given the resources, as well as provide necessary feedback. Accept ideas and input. You're not the only one. Other people may have good ideas as well, right? As well as communicate the vision of the organization and recognize employees for their hard work. That's really important. I posted something on LinkedIn the other day because I've been working with a very dysfunctional team for the last year, and they've come around, and we're working. I'm facilitating something for them, and one of the members, I'm working through her. She wrote me a very nice email about, oh my God, thank you so much. You've been such an attribute. We really appreciate you. And I was like shocked because I'm like, this person doesn't even smile. And here she is recognizing me. But how was that? Why did that happen? Well, part of it is, it's not like I had any magic formula, and I do, but that magic formula I'm going to share with you is, as a leader, people just want to, as human beings, want to be seen, heard, and appreciated. So what does that look like? Letting them say what they need to say, hear them out, acknowledge them, recognize them, appreciate them, thank them. That will take you such a long way. So please remember, seen, heard, and appreciate. Okay, SHA. Also, when we're talking about empowerment, there's benefits to it, and some of those benefits are knowing yourself and seeking improvement, not just for you but your employees. You're more technically proficient, and part of that is because you have those around you, and you're learning, and you're empowered to teach others as well as learn from others. Also, some of the points is that to make sure that you're seeking and taking and developing responsibility, as you're empowered. And when you're empowered, you're making sound and timely decisions, as well as you keep people informed. So this is you empowered as well as other people empowered. So, so how else can you benefit empowerment is, ensure that tasks are understood and supervised and accomplished. You train your people as a team. You use the full capacity of your organization, but also your team, right? You'll be surprised what resources your team will bring to you if you give them if you empower them. And also, someone said this earlier in the beginning, like set the example. And it is, you're setting the example. As you're setting the example, your employees are behaving the way you're behaving. And so now we've got a culture of empowerment. We have a culture of employees working together, cultivating, being creative, being motivating. And also know your employees and look out for their well-being. So when we're talking about benefits of empowerment, people are their well-being is looked at, right? So when we're talking about the purpose of leadership, we're talking about empowerment of your people and giving their empowerment to, to produce results, to produce some of these benefits. And as we saw earlier, to really impact the bottom line of the organization. So leadership so this is by Mr. Dr. Greenleaf from as a servant leader. So that's a great book as well as being what does it mean to be a servant leader, and where we look at leadership as a relationship, why we matter more than I. So how do you build strong, meaningful relationships in your organizations, right? So you want to make sure that you build relationship on trust, mutual respect, and understanding. And leaders serve their followers. What do my followers need? So they empathize, they nurture, they empower them. And effective leaders are also self-aware. So they have a strong ethical standards and they have a holistic view of the organization, as well as they develop high quality relationship with the followers. Okay, high quality relationships. So they turn the followers into leaders themselves. So I truly believe being a leader means that, you're cultivating more leaders, right? Not even just followers. So, at the end of it, what does it mean to be an effective leader that's living on purpose? It's being true to your ethics and principles. Pursue your goals and help others do the same. Generate innovative and productive ideas. Consider the present and as well the future and the upcoming, and be visionary. Acknowledge existing and rising opportunities and take risks. And effectively communicate actions that will play a part to individual organization success. And monitor the organization and inspire others to execute effectively and efficiently as a leader, not necessarily a manager. As well as bring out leadership from others, bring out the leaders from everyone in the lead organization, empower others by decentralizing power, right? So decentralizing power, so what that means is, giving power to others as well. And that doesn't mean like you give them power to run the whole organization, like give them power just for whatever they do. Ask them questions like, well, what do you think? Allowing them to ask questions as well, right? So even that makes a huge difference. And then keep on to succeed and help others do the same. Motivate them, encourage them, and whichever they may, whatever's appropriate for them and for appropriate for the organization. So I hope that you were able to define leadership in a different capacity, and as well as understand the purpose of what leadership is. So I would love to, answer. I want to leave you with the function of leadership is to produce more leaders, not more followers. That's one of my favorite quotes, and that's what I believe. So I want to stop now and give you an opportunity to, ask any questions, make any comments. What are you learning? What are you walking away with? So the floor is yours. So let's take the next few minutes to do that. So get engaged on the chat. Okay, questions, answers. What are you learning? What are you walking away with? Don't be shy. All right. Any comments, questions? So you want me to define a leader in 3 words? Or you're able to define a leader in 3 words? So, for me, it's a true leader is someone that motivates and influences others to take action. So that's not 3 words, but motivate, influence, and action. Oh, well, thank you. You're so walking away with a lot of information. So, what can you just give me a few things? Like what kind of information? I would just love to hear that. And by the way, as you're sharing this, this is good for your learning process. So, as you're sharing what you're learning, that actually gets integrated in you. Okay, so that's why I love to always ask this question. So it's making you think. So, if like I said, if you can answer, what kind of information are you walking away with? That would be really great. All right. What are you learning? Any questions? What are you walking away with? And you're welcome. Thank you for participating and engaging. Okay. Yes, very good. That a leader is an influence that can create leaders and not followers. I love it. Yeah. Yeah. That's, I mean, for me, that's like really what a true leader is, right? Like a true leader is that, I'm like, you're cultivating more leaders. And, I just, I really have the honor. of being able to do that in my lifetime as a professor, as a facilitator. And so, I'm just so blessed to be able to do that. And you too, you never know where you're influencing somebody just by taking an action. Remember to listen, to hear someone, to see someone, to really, appreciate someone. It doesn't take a lot of effort to be seen, heard, and appreciated. And my mom was one of the, like if we look at our parents, especially our mothers, women make great leaders, by the way. And now I'm not being biased. I do believe that's true. But if you think about how our mothers, are with other people, or even our fathers are leaders as well, but they're in a different capacity. But just listening and hearing and appreciating people makes such a difference. So I'm rambling on, but like, any more questions, comments? I want to make sure you get everything you need. So, as we're nearing, while I'm waiting for anybody else that has a question, but I really, want to thank you for being here. And I definitely, again, want to thank TDRA, the Telecommunications and Digital Government Regulatory Authority, for allowing us to have this workshop and giving us this opportunity. You're welcome. It's my pleasure. Thank you for your time and thank you for being here. Okay. Well, again, I just want to thank you so much. And here's a question: how can a leader lead during a pandemic? Great question. So we talked about this a little bit, where one is being adaptable, right? As a leader, being adaptable under the situation, and that's being adaptable with your people, with your processes, as well as with your profits and your place. So I know the big thing right now is, people have been working remotely. Do they what should they come back to the office, etc.? So I think during a pandemic, what's needed more than ever is for us to be able to appreciate. Remember, I always say, see, her, hear, and appreciate, but really is to empathize with our employees, to see what's happening, see what they need, put a little bit more focus on them and their well-being, because everyone is really going through a lot. Whether it's the social aspect of it or the lack of social aspect, whether it's the health. So many people, may have had may have lost individuals during this pandemic. So as a leader, it really is to be adaptable with your processes, adaptable with your people, adaptable, with your profits, as well as making sure that you're appreciating your people, because it has been rough for all of us. And I think as a leader, we owe that to our people. I truly believe that you have people for a lifetime working for you when you let them know that you really care. And this is just an opportunity for you to show people, hey, you know what? I know we're going through this, but we care. And there's hard decisions to be made too, right? Like in regards to, eliminating positions, etc. But just being compassionate and empathetic. Yeah, that's what I would say. So, All right. Well, it's time. Thank you again for your time, and have a wonderful day.